April 16, 1985. 16th Street, Washington. A CIA officer walked into the Soviet embassy. He carried a single sheet of paper. The sheet named 2 Soviet officers secretly working for the CIA. Within 10 months, every Soviet citizen reporting to the CIA had been compromised. At least 10 of them were executed. It took the FBI and the CIA 9 years to find him. This is what he handed over. To understand what happened on April 16, 1985, you have to understand what Aldrich Ames did for a living. By the early 1980s, the CIA's Soviet and Eastern European division was running roughly 24 agents inside the USSR and its satellite states. These were Soviet citizens, most of them officers of the KGB or the GRU, who had agreed, for ideological reasons or for money, to report to the Americans. Their identities were the most closely guarded secret the United States government had. Inside the CIA, a list of every active Soviet asset was maintained by the counterintelligence section. The list named the agent. It described the access. It noted the value of the intelligence produced. And it identified the case officer responsible for the agent's communications. In 1983, the man placed in charge of that list was Aldrich Hazen Ames. He was a 31-year career officer of the Central Intelligence Agency. He was the chief of the Soviet branch within the agency's counterintelligence division. On paper, he was the man tasked with hunting Soviet spies inside the CIA itself. He had access to every name on the list. His marriage was failing. He was drinking heavily. He was, according to internal agency financial reviews conducted afterwards, approximately $50,000 in personal debt. His salary as a senior CIA officer at that grade was approximately $60,000 a year, a figure that, in Washington in 1985, was not enough to maintain the lifestyle his wife wanted. In early 1985, he later told FBI debriefers he made what he described as a single, calculated decision. He decided to sell the list. The walk-in on April 16th was a test. Ames had told the CIA he was meeting with a Soviet diplomat named Sergei Chuvakin in an official liaison capacity. That gave him cover to be seen entering and leaving the embassy. Inside, he asked to be put in touch with a KGB officer. He delivered the 2-name sheet. He requested $50,000 in cash. A few weeks later, in a hotel restaurant near the embassy, the cash was handed to him in a shopping bag. On June 13, 1985, Ames executed what the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence would later call the largest single compromise of CIA assets in the history of the agency. He emptied an entire safe inside CIA headquarters into a pair of plastic shopping bags. He walked the bags out through the main entrance. He drove to a planned meeting in Washington and handed them to a KGB officer named Sergei Cherkashin. The bags contained the operational files of every Soviet agent the CIA was running. The committee report later listed 25 names, among them Adolf Tolkachev, a Soviet aerospace engineer who had been providing the CIA with advanced Soviet radar designs since 1979. Major General Dmitry Polyakov, who had reported to the Americans for over 20 years under the cryptonym Top Hat. Sergei Motorin, a KGB officer who had been recruited inside the Soviet residency in Washington itself. The arrests inside the USSR began that autumn. Within 12 months, almost every agent on the list had been picked up. Trials were held in closed session. Sentences were carried out in the basement of the Lubyanka prison in Moscow. The bodies of the executed were not returned to their families. Inside the CIA, the disappearances triggered an internal investigation. It was codenamed Night Mover. The investigators began with the assumption that the losses had a technical explanation, that the KGB had broken a communications channel, or that there was a leak somewhere in the cable traffic. The possibility that the source of the leaks was a single senior officer inside Soviet branch counterintelligence was, for the first several years, not seriously pursued. In April 1986, Aldrich Ames was given a routine reinvestigation polygraph examination. He passed. In 1991, after Polyakov's execution had been publicly confirmed by Soviet authorities, Ames was polygraphed a second time. He passed again. The internal CIA review that examined those examinations afterwards concluded that the polygraph procedures had been perfunctory and that the operator on at least one occasion had been told in advance not to interpret slight physiological irregularities as indicators of deception. By 1989, Ames had been paid by the KGB approximately $1.8 million. He had bought a $500,000 house in Arlington, Virginia, in cash. He had purchased a Jaguar sedan. His wife was wiring tens of thousands of dollars at a time to her family in Bogotá. His credit card statements showed restaurant spending 3 times his declared after-tax salary. The financial review that would eventually identify him was not opened until 1992. The FBI and the CIA had not historically shared counterintelligence investigations. The disappearance of the Soviet agents in 1985 and 1986 was treated for years as a CIA internal matter. That changed in April 1991 when the two agencies formed a joint task force codenamed Play Actor. Its mandate was to identify the source of the 1985 losses, and it was given access for the first time to the financial records of CIA officers with relevant access. The financial analysis took 18 months. By the autumn of 1992, the task force had narrowed its list of suspects to 28 officers. By the spring of 1993, to 12. By the summer of 1993, the records of Aldrich Ames were singled out as containing unexplained cash deposits coincident, within days, with several of his documented meetings with Soviet diplomats. The FBI placed him under surveillance. For 8 months, FBI counterintelligence teams photographed Ames's car, intercepted his mail, recorded his trash collection, and surveilled the dead drop sites his trash receipts suggested he was using. In August 1993, an FBI agent inside his home, planting a recording device while the family was away, discovered notes in his handwriting referring to specific Soviet contacts. The arrest was carried out on the morning of February 21, 1994. Ames was driving out of his neighborhood, on his way to Dulles Airport, to fly to a CIA conference in Moscow. He pled guilty in April 1994. He received a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He is, as of this recording, serving that sentence at a federal prison in Pennsylvania. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence concluded in its report of November 1994 that Aldrich Ames had passed to Soviet intelligence approximately the contents of 129 top-secret cables. He had identified to Moscow every Soviet citizen working for the CIA whose case he had access to. He had revealed the location and the operational status of 3 of the 4 most productive Soviet source operations the United States was running at the time. He had taken from the CIA over 9 years approximately $2.7 million in Soviet and later Russian payments. He had cost the lives of at least 10 human beings whose names were never released to the public, and whose families were informed only that the executions had taken place. Inside the CIA, the institutional response to the Ames case took 2 forms. The first was the creation of a new counterintelligence center under FBI co-management, designed to prevent a single officer from ever again controlling the entire list of Soviet assets. The second was a quiet decision, taken in the years that followed, to restrict the polygraph as a primary tool of internal security. By 1996, the procedure that had cleared Ames twice was no longer the gate it had once been. It had failed because the man being examined had decided years earlier that the truth was simply something he was willing to suppress. 7 years after his arrest, on February 18, 2001, the FBI arrested a 56-year-old senior agent of the Bureau itself. He had been spying for the Russians for 22 years. His name was Robert Hansen. But that is another story. This is the secret record. If you want a declassified document fact each day, follow Aldrich Record Sec 26979 on X.